What's up, everybody? We are back. The Between the Lines podcast breaks down week 4 of the high school football season. I am your host, Dante Centofanti, along with my partner,
What's up, baby?
Coach Danny Stella. What's good, Coach? We had another eventful week in Northeast Ohio for high school football, and we start off with our Buena Vista Cafe game of the week between Cleveland St. Ignatius and Austintown Fitch, and it did not disappoint. It took 2 OTs to decide this banger
Double
between
OT.
2 powerhouse programs with talent all over the field, as TJ Parker and the Falcons improved to 3-1 on the season and still undefeated in Ohio play. They won 24-21 with the 11-time state champion Wildcats. It was 14-7, seconds remaining, and DeAndre Richards scored to make it a tied game. But the Wildcats got a pick six to tie the game, but DeAndre Richards scored to take the lead. Big defensive showcase. If you like defensive football, then Falcon Stadium, Greenwood Chevrolet Falcon Stadium was the place to be Friday night. Dan Evans III, he was able to get a nice pick. We've been watching him a lot this season. Max Wodke, he had both both had INTs, but Wodke's pick six in the third quarter. That was a great play. That was a really good play.
Absolutely. That was the play that got St. Ignatius back into it.
Yeah, and it also shut Fitch down a little bit. You mentioned that to me. You looked at the body language on the Fitch sideline. They looked out of it.
They were defeated. But more so than that, Ignatius needed it because at that point in time, their offense was really struggling. They running back Grant Washington was doing a good job running the ball. He was putting his head down. He was hitting it. They just ain't having all the big plays coming from the pass game. But I got to give credit to Coach Franzinger and the staff. They went in at halftime adjustments. Y'all hear me talk about it a lot. And they came out, started getting the ball to Jordan Merrimee, number 9. I want to say in the second half, he had 4 or 5 big catches, but they still couldn't quite get over the edge and get in the end zone. So that pick six by Woodkey was big, got them back into it. But shout out to the Falcons for regrouping. They were shot. Their body language was bad for a second, but shout out to the coaching staff. They regrouped them. They got it together. And they went on down and got the game time.
Yeah, Deshaun Vaughn, we'll get into him later. But the drive that he was able to engineer to send the game ultimately into overtime, it was a close call, in 2 OTs. But Anthony Ruggles was able to hit the 23-yard field goal for Fitch to win this game. And we're going to get into Deshaun Vaughn Jr. right now. He was our Ellie House player of the game. Attention programs. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
Yep, when you look at it, he had 263 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. But if he was at the game, it wasn't really the stats. The stats are like you got to be there to feel his presence, feel his poise, feel his competitiveness, feel his leadership, feel his toughness. If it was 3rd and 4, he got 6. If it was 4th and 3, he got 5. He always played the next play. He always kept composed. He threw an interception in this game too, but he didn't put his head down. He didn't go to the sideline and pout and point fingers. You can tell he's a big-time player. I've been saying it since our first episode. Pound for pound, he's one of the best players we got in the Valley.
No doubt. So, you look at just when we were there for practice Thursday, me and Linnell. Shout out to Linnell, by the way, our founder.
What's up, Al?
Always doing a great job helping us out. Great leader, great general. His military background. But when we were at practice, Thursday, one thing I noticed from Deshaun was he was always, helping his teammates out, always, offensively, defensively, always asking them, oh, what route were you running? Or, what were y'all doing on that one sequence? And it was just a walkthrough, and he was taking it seriously. And when we interviewed him for, our previews the day before the game, they blew Glen Oak out the week before. It was pretty much, on paper, it looked like it was, a perfect game. But he was telling me about, just, the mistakes that I needed to correct going into this game because he knew, Ignatius isn't Euclid. They're not Glen Oak. This is Iggy, and he understood the assignment, and that's why he was our, player of the game. Just everything on offense he was doing right. 197 passing yards, like you said, 263 all-purpose yards. And 2 touchdowns. He is going to definitely get a Division I.
You're a leader. You can never
something.
Be
Division I something. Because he's that talented.
He's going to be a Division I player, and the piggyback to make me sound even that much better. I'm not going to say what school I was at, but there was a Division I school coach that was there. He agreed with me. He said he think Deshaun Vaughn is pound for pound the best player in the area. So he'll be playing somewhere Division I football, but it's the tangibles. That's what make people great. That's what get people to the next level. It's a lot of people in college that's talented.
Yeah.
Talent is what gets you to college. The difference between the talented and the people that become great and make long careers is those intangibles. Look at Tom Brady. He got the worst workout ever in the history of quarterbacks at the NFL Combine. But what you can't measure is his heart, his toughness, his leadership, his intangible. So shout out to Coach TJ Parker.
Yeah.
Shout out to Deshaun Vaughn Jr., again, our LA House player of the game. You did your thing, baby. I'm a big fan. And shout out to the Falcons. They needed that win.
Absolutely. And Ignatius, again, you know, whenever you're a first-year head coach, but when you're replacing a legend like Chuck Kyle, it's very challenging. And when I talked to Coach Frazinger last week, you know, he understood, you know, how tough it was going to be because, you know, he played for that program. He came up in that program. Ignatius, you know, they're going to host Akron Hoban next week. And if they have any chance of getting to the playoffs, they need to win that game, which is going to be a struggle because as we both know, Hoban has all the pieces that they need this year again to be great. And Fitch, they have a home game against Snow Monroe Falls this Friday at Falcon Stadium before arguably their biggest game of the season against Ursuline. Snow Monroe Falls is I think a team that they should be. We know TJ Parker's going to have them ready to go regardless. You know, when you come off of an emotionally draining, you know, win like this, you know, coach, you know, 2 overtimes. And, you know, I was just thinking about this, you know, prime example, Ohio State in 2017, JT Barrett's last year, that emotionally draining win over Penn State, high scoring affair, and Ohio State was able to escape. But then the next week they go on the road and they lay an egg to Iowa. And that's pretty much what cost them a trip to the college football playoff that year. But again, it's home against Snow Monroe Falls. I don't see them tripping up.
It's a trap game, though, like you said. It's a trap game.
You think?
It's a trap game for sure. You just laid it out perfect. You just came off a big emotional win.
Right.
It's a big time state power. And then what's next week of waiting on them? Ursuline, which is a big time rivalry in the city of Youngstown.
Right.
Who king of Youngstown this year? So
yeah,
absolutely. It is a trap game for sure.
But again,
do I think they'll be fine? Yes. I think Coach Parker and them will have them ready. But it's a trap game for sure, Dante. Everything you said was 100% correct. So.
Absolutely. And we're going to move on here again. Congratulations to Coach Parker. You guys played very well. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of you this week.
And shout out to Coach Parker out there. Got the whole staff in the Jordan 1s. I seen y'all, baby.
Yeah, that was fresh. That was fresh. And, of course, Sean Vaughn Jr. Okay, we're going to move on here, Coach. Struthers versus Girard, you know, a good local matchup, good rivalry, renewed NEA conference play. And Struthers, I know you were really hyped about this on our way back from Falcon Stadium.
I was.
You know, they won a shootout, high-scoring NEA affair, 35-28 on the road. This was the conference opener for the Wildcats. And quarterback Jason Dukes, he had one of the best performances of week 4. Cats were down 21-7 in the second quarter, and he basically took over. In the third quarter, though, it was Anthony Carter scoring a touchdown. But, you know, Girard and head coach Pat Pearson, you know, they know what they do, what they're doing because they're a great staff. And, you know, tough McConaughey, you know, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the area. You know, the transfer from Pennsylvania, they were able to get him. You know, he threw a dime to Anthony Bengala to make it 28-20. So the Indians responded. They were at home. But, you know, Dukes, he was able to engineer, you know, another drive. They converted on the 2-point. And then with under a minute to go, Coach Bayek had incredible, you know, clock management, you know, be able to get down the field like that, milk the clock, and then the touchdown with seconds remaining. And, this game is very eye-opening because this leads to the NE8, and we're going to get to other NE8 teams later. But you look at this conference, you look at South Range, defending state champions. You look at Poland, they're unbeaten. We're going to get to them later. And you look at this win by Struthers in a very hostile environment. This was arguably the most impressive win of week 4.
I think it was the most impressive win in week 4 for sure. That's why I wanted to make sure we talked about it. When you look at it, Girard jumped out on them early. Number one, it was a road win for Struthers. So you go into Girard, hostile territory. They jump out on you early. Like you said, shout out to the quarterback, Tough McConaughey, threw for 366 yards, 3 touchdowns. One of the best quarterbacks we got in the area, like you said. So they jumped out early. The fact that, number one, the coaching staff can keep their kids composed, keep them believing. And if you, like you said, if you look at the score, you would think it's like an old-fashioned shootout, a lot of throwing, a lot of passing. But if you look at what Struthers did, I got it wrote down right here. They had 3 players with 100 yards rushing. You got Devin Brom, 22 carries, 174 yards, a touchdown. Anthony Carter, 22 carries, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. And like you said, the aforementioned Jason Dukes, 20 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a combined for 66 carries and 400 yards.
Yeah. And when we went to Struthers practice, you could tell he was a leader, just like Sean Vaughn, you know, just very loose, very, you know, in tune to, you know, his teammates and how they're doing. he's a leader, and they have a coach that comes from very good stock leading their program. And, I could see Struthers getting back to promise. They're coming off a playoff appearance a year ago. They did get humbled by, one of the better teams in the region, West Branch, and Drew DeShields at Kent State right now. But
shout out Kent State.
Absolutely, as always. But, they came into the season with a lot of momentum, and that's showing now as we get to week 5.
Absolutely, Dante. Like you said, they started off the season, if my numbers might be wrong, 1-4 last year, 1-3 last year. And like you said, they rolled momentum into the playoffs and finished it good. And then it's like they just carrying it right into this year.
No doubt.
Year 3 of Coach Begg, year 3 at the helm running the program. That was a big time win, because I'm pretty sure nobody picked Struthers to go on the road and go beat Girard. And you do it in year 3, so now your players really believe, your program really believe. So hopefully they can springboard off of that, like you said, and get ready for the conference play. That's going to be really tough this year. So shout out to Coach Johnny Begg, baby. You're doing a good job, baby.
Absolutely, no
You're
question.
Doing a good job, man. Happy for you.
And before we move on, Struthers has a very, very big test to see if they're really for real this upcoming Friday as they host the South Range Raiders.
Yes.
Girard is going to host Pymatuming Valley. That really shouldn't be a problem.
Right, they should bounce back.
They should bounce back. But that game, Struthers South Range, that game could very well determine the Northeast State this year.
Absolutely. That's going to be a big time. That's going to be one of them old-fashioned games. Both teams like to run the ball. Pads going to be popping.
Both teams have athletes.
Both teams got athletes. Both teams got great coaching staff.
Exactly.
So that's going to be a chess match. That's a big time game. I can't wait to get back and check the scores and read about it on Saturday morning.
And of course, congratulations to Coach Begg and all the great
Coach Begg, keep it up, baby.
On the Wildcat staff. And we're going to move on to Warren G. Harding and Akron St. Vincent St. Mary. Coach, I see that look on your face, and I share it as well. St. V's, they won 42-28 as the Raiders dropped to 1-3. They were able to get a win in Akron week 2, but this was pretty much the molecular opposite of a result from that week 2 performance. Harding did strike first.
Yep.
Antonio Smith, I've been telling you all year that's going to be the key to Harding's success on offense. 28-0 run, but St. V scored 35 unanswered points. After that, 35 unanswered points. We talked about Harding last week, being a second half team. This game wasn't even close. They were not a 60-minute team. Rather, it was just a complete terrible loss. This is the second straight loss Harding has faced against St. Vincent St. Mary. Again, they lost last year at Molotov Stadium to the Irish. But one player, we talked about great performances this week. I want to talk to you about DJ Johnson, the running back for St. Vincent St. Mary.
Yes.
He could very well be Ohio's Mr. Football this year with these numbers. He rushed for 201 yards and 4 touchdowns. There's a very good piece in the Akron Beacon Journal profile about him, written by Brad Borneval. Shout out to the Akron Beacon Journal. This was a really good piece. And for those of you at home, I would really consider reading this because, Irish wide receiver David Jose, again, if I am saying that wrong, please email us or call us and correct us. Again, he said, quote, and this is in the article, for us to get the plays that we need in the passing game, he needs to make the big play because he's so good, in the backfield. He's, deciding everything offensively. And that's the signal of a good offensive player. And you've coached a lot of very good offensive playmakers in your time as an assistant coach. And, through 4 games, Johnson's carried the rock 91 times for 535 yards and 9 touchdowns. He was the real deal in this game, and he had arguably one of the most dominant performances in Ohio in week 4.
Yep, he ran that thing right down our throat, Dante. Correct. Pretty much simple and plain. And like you said, to piggyback off your point, when you got a big-time playmaker, a good football player that's your quarterback or running back, what it does is it affects the numbers. So now it makes it easier for the play caller and the quarterback. All they got to do is come to the line of scrimmage. If you got 2 high safeties, we're going to run the ball. Which you probably won't because we got a beast in the backfield. So now you drop down that other safety. Now we can play action. We can take shots on first down. We can get in 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. And all that means for a coach, when I got a good tailback, if I'm in 2nd and 3, that means I got 3 plays to get 3 yards because I'm going to go for it on 4th down if it's 4th and 1. Yeah. So I read them stats, the same thing you read, Dante. Shout out to the tailback from St. Vincent St. Mary. You had a great game. Shout out to the whole staff, the whole team. Y'all did what y'all supposed to do. Sucks for me as a Warren G. Harding alum and fan that we're 1-3, but shout out to the St. V's, man. They did their thing, man. To the Irish. I ain't got much to say right now about Harding, man. They just got to get better. Everybody got to get better, be better. And if they don't get no better, we ain't about to keep talking about them every week either. So at this point, it's going to be a moot point. So I love them to death. Everybody know I love them. It ain't nothing personal. This ain't no shots. It's just facts. If you 1-3 and you keep losing, what we got to talk about at that point. So
they're on the road at the Ice Castle this Friday, taking on Ursuline. Just bottom line, what needs to get better for this Harding team?
Everything.
Is it a staff problem?
Everything.
What exactly is the problem?
Everything. Like I said the last week, at this point, because you're 1-3 this year, but you also were 2-8 last year. So it's not the coaches, it's just the players. I said it last week, coaches, players, community, administration staff. Everybody got to go look at themselves and figure out something got to change. I get so frustrated when I'm talking to people and people are pointing the finger, oh, this player got to do this, that player got to do this coach got to do this. We just talked about accountability. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to be accountable and say, no, it starts with me. I need to be better. Because the proof is in the pudding. If you watch the last 2 years, is anybody doing a great job? And that's no shot at nobody. It just is what it is. We were 2-8 last year. Now we're 1-3. So if I'm doing my math real quick, we're what? 3-11 in the last 14 games. So we got to be better, man. I'm always going to love Warren G. Harding. I'm an alumni. I'm always going to rep them, support them. I ain't going to say nobody loves the Raiders more than me because I don't want to put down or disrespect nobody that's before me that played or nothing like that. But we just got to be better, man.
And of course, St. V's, they have a tough schedule coming up. They host Walsh Jesuit, and then they have Ursuline. Yes. That game is going to be very, very
battle with the Irish.
That game is going to be very
battle with the Irish. Yep.
I mean, you could have two of the better teams in the region playing each
Absolutely.
other. But you look at Harding's upcoming schedule after Ursuline. They're home against Cheney and then Boardman. So you go into the Ice Castle. If you're Steve Arnold. And you've been on his staff before. What do you think he's saying to his team going into this game?
Well, number one, we got to get better today. So going into this game against Ursuline, I'm pretty sure he's telling them nobody think they can win. There's nobody in Trimble-Mahoney County who think they're going to win on Friday night. So you ain't got no pressure on you. Let's just go play. But better off, more so let's play. Let's go get better because it's only week 5. Like, just because you 1-3 right now don't mean you can't make the playoffs, especially with the strength of schedule Harding got. So let's just go be better. Let's go put our one foot in front of the other one. Let's be better. Let's stack bricks today in practice. Tomorrow, let's stack another brick. Thursday, let's stack another brick. Friday, let's go stack 4 more bricks, meaning 4 good quarters of football, and let's see where we at. You're going to play against a good football team with a great coaching staff. They're going to be ready to play. It's Harding Ursuline. It's a whole SBC rivalry. So they got to be ready to play. But from a big scheme picture, they can still get to the playoffs, and Harding can be dangerous if they get to the playoffs. But none of that's going to matter, Dante, even if they win, if we're not getting better. So number one is we got to get better. Let's be a better football team this week than we were last week.
Okay, Coach, and we're going to move on to our final game breakdown before we get into our Buena Vista Cafe game of the week for Week 5, and that's the Battle of 224.
Battle of 224.
Battle of
the Pavlansky Bowl.
Absolutely, one of the most storied rivalries in the 330 was renewed Friday at Pavlansky Field in Poland, and the Bulldogs got a very historic win. This was their first. They snapped a 6-game losing streak against the Cardinals as they won a close one, 10-7. This was their first win against the Cardinals since 2013, and they did it in pretty dramatic fashion. Of course, Canfield coming into this game, losses to Olmsted Falls, losses to Mansfield Senior, but they were back in local play, and what better way to get back on track than to beat your biggest rival. Canfield led 7-3 in the third quarter, after a big run by Danny English, and it set up a QB run by Paul Bindus. And it was all set up by an INT. So, beautiful, execution as usual by Coach Pavlansky and his squad. But the other Coach Pavlansky, answered. Ensuing possession play of the game was made by Cole Fulton. He had a beautiful, beautiful 59-yard run. It was a grown man run, if you know what I'm talking about, Coach. And they ended up winning the game. That fueled them to win the game. And I think the storyline in this game, outside of Canfield's clear state championship hangover is Poland. They're undefeated. They're 4-0. They're looking to, get back to the playoffs and make some noise like they have in past seasons. And they're on point, but they're in a very competitive conference. Like I just talked about, they got to get through South Range. They got to get through Struthers. You mentioned to me, we're going to get into that later. Lakeview has shown lots of signs of improvement with the first-year head coach. And, they're on the road against Hubbard this week while Canfield hosts Cheney. Again, Cowboys. Only loss that they had in their great season last year that will live in 330 lore forever was against Cheney on the road.
Canfield, remember that forever.
I don't know what the bigger storyline is. Canfield's clear state championship hangover or Poland starting off 4-0?
I'm going to start with Poland just because they winning. They 4-0. And, a lot of coaches and kids put a lot of work in to win. So I don't want to sell that short at all. The Bulldogs are back. That's what they're saying in Poland. They had a couple down years the last couple of years, but anybody know anything about Poland, their program is normally pretty good. Coach Pavlansky does a good job. and they're on track. Like you said, another thing that stuck out to me was 10-7, old school type football game, defensive battle, a lot of hard hitting, a lot of tough runs, like you said, beast mode type runs. So it was a great atmosphere, great football game, and shout out to the Bulldogs for pulling it out, especially when you're down 7-3 and you lost 6 in a row. As a brother, I don't want to keep going to Thanksgiving dinner and keep looking at my brother knowing he keep beating me, brother or not. You know what I mean? And as a whole, as a community, I don't want to keep losing to my rivalry every year. So shout out to the Bulldogs.
Yeah. And one thing is, Coach, like whenever, you're happy when it's like in the SEC, like say Alabama, wins the national championship. If you're an Auburn fan, I'm sure you're not, happy at all that Alabama is a national champion, but you're happy that, the SEC is still on top. And I feel like that's how it was here. Poland, for the last 365 days, not only have I had to deal with, this losing streak and not being able to beat Canfield, but now I have to deal with them winning a state championship, which is what Canfield people dealt with in 1999 when Poland won state. But I think the Bulldogs came ready to play. If you watch any, news highlights of that game, you could tell that they were waiting for this. They were really, really waiting for this.
They was ready to go, Dante.
Like as opposed to like previous years. We have to end this streak and we have to, just shut them up because we're sick of hearing how great they are with state championship banners. And I think this is a very, very program turning win for the Bulldogs. That's going to impact them. I hate to sound dramatic, but I think this win is going to really impact them for years with the state of their program. And as far as the season goes, I think they have nowhere to go but up. But that Cheney game this week, that's really going to decide. We talked about Ignatius, fighting for playoff points. If Canfield wants any prayer of getting to the playoffs, they have to beat the Cowboys this week. This is their season. This is their season.
And it's not going to be easy because Canfield don't won 2 in a row. Of course, they playing their better ball.
Cheney had a very impressive win this week against Marlington.
I'm sorry. Cheney won 2 in a row. I'm sorry. Won 2 in a row, and they playing some of their better ball they played all year. So, like you said, it's going to be tough. And then also, Cheney going to have confidence based on the fact that they beat you last year. The only team to beat you in the year you win the state championship.
No question, yeah.
So it's going to be, again, that's another game. I can't wait to check the scores and get up and read about it the next morning and see what happens. So, hey, as the weeks go, baby, this football get better and better.
And now we get to, we look at week 5 in our Buena Vista Cafe game of the week. This is going to be probably the biggest game.
No problem.
The biggest game that we cover.
Oh, yeah.
Programs that we're going to be seeing this Friday: Lakewood St. Ed's and Massillon, Washington. We were we were at Massillon, Washington. They're beautiful.
Shout out to Coach Moore and everybody.
And they're beautiful,
we appreciate the hospitality.
and they're beautiful NFL like indoor facility, which I don't know if you've ever been in, but it's very, very great.
Yes.
And people in Massillon, Washington, I hope they recognize how lucky they are to have not only just the facilities that they have and obviously the program name that they have, but what we're going to see Friday, Coach, and you've seen this all your career playing for Harding, which is an arch rival of Massillon, coaching against Massillon, that entire city. Like the players told me when I interviewed them. And by the way, those interviews that we did, our Buena Vista Cafe Game of the Week previews, will be up on YouTube in the coming days. So subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Stay tuned, baby,
for that. But they were just telling me when I was talking to the players, everybody knows the Massillon lust, and everybody knows, what an honor it is, to put on, the black and the orange, or the orange and the black. But they were telling me, just how really special it is, aside what you see, in the documentaries and the movies and, in the news. That whole city, and every community comes out for the program, here in the Dub, obviously with the Raiders, but it's just special in Massillon. And that's the thing that I'm most excited to see Friday, because I've never covered a Massillon football game in my career. And now I get to do that. And I get to do it with you. And
I'm happy we're gonna do it together.
It's gonna be something I'm excited to see. It's gonna be something I'm excited to see.
I don't know how many times I've been there, Dante, as a player and a coach. I've been there a lot of times. It's gonna be one of the best high school atmospheres you can ever be around.
Yeah, especially because this is the biggest game in the state, like you mentioned. Now we look at this game, Coach. This is the number 1 team in Division 1 versus the number 3 team in Division 2. Eds and Coach Lombardo were able to win 34-33 against Cincinnati Elder last week to remain unbeaten. So they're coming off an emotionally fueled win against one of the best teams in the state. And Massillon and Coach Nate State more. They defeated Elkhart High School. They're from Indiana. Another out-of-state win that they got on the year, 55-0. They put up at least 50 points in the last 3 weeks, and that's all credited to their high-powered offense with their 2 QB system that they make work so very well. It's hard to do that in high school football, to have a 2 QB system. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works, but for Massillon, it's working overtime. The points that they're scoring is just outrageous. Now, last year's meeting in Week 5, the Tigers won a very close 30 points at Massillon, and it's at Massillon again. And this is only their second Ohio game of the season for the Eagles. You know, we've seen them in the Northeast Ohio versus America Showcase. We've seen them, you know, play on ESPNU recently against Our Lady of Good Counsel. That game was on ESPNU, and they beat Rock Creek Christian in Maryland Week 3. So they played a lot of out-of-state teams. Now, the one thing, before I let you get into this, Coach, the one thing I asked Coach Moore, and again, you'll see that in the interview, and I asked the players, I was just curious if it mattered, because I didn't know if it mattered at all. You know, you guys have pretty similar teams. You both have played a lot of out-of-state opponents coming into this game. Do you feel like that helps you coming into this game or not? And they said it really doesn't. But I just want to get your perspective. Do you think that is going to be a factor at all? Because, you know, I don't know. I'm just a reporter, but is it
going to be a factor? No, because when you get in the game, you got to play the game.
Right.
Are they watching each other? Yes. As a competitor, when you playing and you coaching, you watching everything. So if I know we playing St. Ed's, they playing out-of-state teams, we playing out-of-state teams. When I see you that week, I want to make sure we undefeated, you undefeated. I don't want you to have no competitive edge on me at all. I don't want you to have no competitive edge on me. If you play out-of-state teams, I play out-of-state teams. Guess what? You play out-of-state teams, out-of-state teams, but also. And then Massillon also, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder because they beat them last year and rode St. Ed's winning their second back-to-back state championship. And Massillon got them last year. They only loss St. Ed's had. So Massillon come into the game with confidence. They expecting to play well. They're expecting to win. Like you said, they done put up 50 points the last couple of weeks. So they're playing the best ball they could play. Yeah. 2 quarterback system, like you said. I just happen to be playing on a team that made it to a state championship that had a 2 quarterback system. You can work beautifully. Number one, if you got a great staff. I'm wrong. Number one, if you got a great family. Because a lot of times, a lot of people don't know, as a high school kid, when you go home, your family is talking. Dante, you should be playing. That person should be playing. Why they ain't playing you? So number one, it starts with the family. You want to have great families that's going to always be positive and support your kid no matter what, and not give them no energy to go back to the locker room and set the locker room on fire. Number two, you got to have a great staff. And then if you got 2 quarterbacks that have different skill sets, like Massillon's quarterback do, like Mike Coco and Mike Phillips had when I played with them, it's a little bit easier. Because as teammates, you know, okay, here comes Dante is one offense. Okay, here comes Mike is another offense. So I'm sure it helps the kids out because they know both of them are ballers. But I know whoever's coming in the huddle can lead us. But I kind of know how to adjust my game and know our game plan, at least for that drive, based on who the quarterback is.
This is going to be a very good quarterback battle because you have Casey Bullock of Eds, who's one of the best quarterbacks.
David Davidson, congratulations, Casey.
Congratulations. And, you look at Washington. Copley transfer came in this year and has done nothing but great things in orange and black. And of course, they have Jalen Slaughter, who I got a chance to talk to today. Really, really, really good guy. You can tell, you know, how much of a leader he is in the locker room. You know, just seeing them practice, you know, their football IQ's through the roof.
Absolutely.
And when you're born in Massillon, your football IQ needs to be through the roof.
Absolutely.
Because you get little footballs once you come into the world, of course.
You breathe it. You live it, you breathe it, you sleep it.
And that's what we're going to see Friday night. But at the same time, the St. Ed's tradition is just as great as Washington. These aren't just one of the two of the best brands in Ohio high school football. These are 2 of the best brands in American high school football. So this game is just going to be colossal Friday. We're very fortunate to be able to cover this. And of course, special thanks to Warren G. Harding legend Nick Francos for sponsoring our game of the week.
Before we move on, Dante, I'll tell you what I'm looking at. It's going to be a battle of the teams. You look at St. Ed's, they have 3 Division I commits already. Going to Ohio State. And also another kid I'm going to talk about here, Ben Roebuck, that's going to Michigan. Yeah. So you got 3 Division I players on the offensive line. You got Chase Bond that's going to NC State on the other side. Massillon always has a physical O-line and D-line on both ways. I can't wait to watch the trenches. Whoever win the trenches, will probably win this game because both teams got athletes, good coaches, good quarterbacks, all of that. Whoever wins the trenches offensively and defensively don't win this game Friday night.
All right, absolutely. We get to the Between the Lines player of the week. And Coach Stella, you're very fond of this guy, Antoine Gardner, the Niles running back. He had quite the performance in week 4. So just tell us a little bit about him.
Shout out to Antoine Gardner, baby. You did your thing. You did your thing on Friday night on the big win over Hubbard. You look at the stats right here, 25 carries, 153 yards and a touchdown. But the thing that stepped out to me was 3 catches for 108 yards. So most tailbacks, especially in high school, are not dual threat players. Most of them just want you to hand the ball so they can run. But you have a big-time tailback that can also get you 25 carries. That means he's a workload. He's a horse. You can give it to him. You can carry the team. But you can also give him 3 catches. He can get you 108 yards and a touchdown. That's big time. So our Between the Lines with Coach Stella Player of the Week, Antoine Gardner, senior running back from Niles. You're doing your thing, baby. Keep doing your thing. Congratulations to you. And keep chugging, keep going. See how long we can get the Niles Dragons to go in the playoffs this year and see how good of a season they can have. That's another team that's in that conference we've been talking about. Yeah. That conference is really, really tough this year. So shout out to Antoine Gardner, baby. We see you.
All right, Coach. We reached the end of the program here, but before we go, we got some shout outs that we want to do. So let's start off with you.
I'm gonna go first, man. Shout out Coach Derek the Lakeview Bulldogs. A lot of people ain't talking about y'all. We're going to talk about y'all a lot. That don't mean we ain't watching and reading and paying attention to what's going on. Coach Bush, you're doing an amazing job. Got the Bulldogs off to 3-1. They played South Range last week. They only lost 28-21.
Yeah, they played.
Coaches don't believe in moral victory, so I'm not saying they taking a moral victory.
Right.
But who would have thought going into the game, South Range wasn't going to beat them by 21 points probably.
Correct.
So shout out to Coach Bush. I appreciate you. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And shout out to my nephew. He the kicker out there, the freshman kicker, Easton Bradley, baby. Keep doing your thing.
All right.
And my last shout out, Dante, I just want to shout out St. Ed's, Hoban, Maslin, Avon, Painesville, Riverside, Walsh Jesuit, Nordonia, Ursuline, Kingston, Geneva, Gilmore Academy, Canton South, Steubenville, Glenville, Garrettsville, Garfield, Rootstown, Kirkland, for all those teams in Northeast Ohio that made the top 10 in their respective divisions this week. It came out yesterday. So shout out to y'all, man. Keep representing Northeast Ohio. We got a couple other teams that's right on the brink. Fitch was close. Kent McKinley was close in their respective divisions. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all them teams and coaches for getting recognized. And we see y'all doing your thing.
Absolutely. And it's only going to get better in the AP polls for our region from here, Coach. I want to get into my shout outs. In the Browns, great week 1 win over the Bengals Sunday. It was just beautiful to see, Coach. To have back-to-back week 1 wins. It's something I haven't experienced a lot in my lifetime as a Browns fan. But this is the first time since '94 that the Browns were able to get back-to-back 93-94 back-to-back week 1 wins. But during that game, Dan Reardon and Jack Erickson were honored by the Browns. They were one of the team players and coaches of the week. For the Cleveland Browns. The Browns do a lot for Northeast Ohio high school football.
Yes, they do.
And, Coach Reardon, on Ursuline's social media, you see him with a customized jersey. Right. So it's great to see, a team from the 330 be represented, by the Browns. They had a great win over Padua. And you see like Jack Erickson with the big Brownie, the elf chain. Okay. It's cool. It's cool. And
shout out Coach Reardon, Jack Erickson, baby. Good job.
And absolutely, Ursuline, they have a test against Harding, which is always a classic, like you said, Old Steel Valley Conference rivalry this Friday at the Ice Castle, and then they have Fitch, and then St. Vincent St. Mary right after that. So, as great as Ursuline is, Coach Reardon knows that they have some challenges ahead of them. Yep. But before we go, I want to get into a very somber shout out. Baby. A friend of my family, Coach Barone. Is somebody who you always see he's a member of the Girard coaching staff. He's always in the press box scheming for the Indians. He's been a part of a lot of great playoff runs that Girard has had in recent years. And his father, David Barone, unfortunately passed away recently. And I never met David Barone, but I know Coach Barone. And I just want to let him know that on behalf of everybody at Interviews and the Between the Line podcast, their thoughts and prayers are with him. And his father, David Barone, he had a very good playing history in high school. He was a member of the 2 undefeated seasons that Struthers had in the late 60s. Okay. So he comes from a very great football family, a football family that represents our area well. And my thoughts and prayers.
My condolences and prayers to you, Coach, and your family,
tonight.
man. Always be in our prayers, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the Between the Lines podcast. Once
again,
another great week. And
be sure to
subscribe to the Interviews YouTube channel for all of our content and previewing St. Ed's versus Mass.
Stay tuned, baby.
For Interviews, I'm Dante Centofanti, wishing you a very good night.
Not being